Howdy folks, behind me is a 2010 Ford F550. It has a V10 gas engine and an automatic transmission, and now it's going to rain. Stand by. Well, in light of the sudden onset of inclement weather, we are going to eschew the normal snarky introduction, and I will move directly into the customer complaint and diagnostic phase of the video. Sorry, I have skipped ahead a bit. This is our problem. This truck has an automatic transmission and it has a PTO, or power takeoff unit. This little guy right here allows the regular engine under the hood to power a hydraulic pump that runs all the functions of the body attached to the truck. The customer complaint was that that hydraulic pump intermittently didn't work. It's kind of an interesting unit. I've never worked on one that was built quite like this, and that's also, I think, the reason why it failed. Yeah, I think our scattered showers have turned into something a little more dramatic. Anyway, this is a Chelsea PTO. This gear right here meshes with a gear on the input shaft of the transmission, and anytime that the input shaft of the transmission is turning, this little guy can send power out to something mounted here attached to this shaft. What's different about this PTO versus a normal PTO is this stuff right here. It actually has a multi-disc clutch, just like what you would find inside of an automatic transmission, or I don't know, steering clutches on an Oliver OC46. I guess the idea is that it's quieter. So normally on an automatic transmission, when you engage the PTO, it kind of grinds a little bit, because usually what it does is it just slides a gear over so that it contacts another gear, and the input shaft is normally turning, so you always get a little clashing when that happens. But this is supposed to be more civilized. Anyway, long story short, this clutch is burned up. It's no good. That's your friction. There's no friction left. There's your steel. Oh, another friction. It's completely smoked. And the reason why is because of this seal right here. So that's the piston seal. It actually gets pressure from the pressure line in the transmission. It's the same pressure that would tighten the bands or the clutches inside the transmission. They tap into it using a solenoid valve, and it actually squeezes the clutches and makes everything work. Anyway, I don't know why this seal failed, but that is the genesis of our problem. So yeah. So 17 days ago, I ordered a new mounting flange gasket, 2 new locating dowel pins, a full seal kit, a set of frictions, and a set of steels. Yeah, that's not going to work. I don't know why it failed. There's probably a special tool to collapse this seal. But we don't have that, so we're going to very, very delicately massage it with a non-sharp pick. Beautiful. So that seal right there allows, well, it seals around this shaft and lets the fluid go in the middle of the shaft in order to actuate the piston. Let's try the pilot bearing puller. I don't think I've ever actually used it for pulling a pilot bearing. Might work for this. Maybe. If only there was some kind of device here in the shop we could use to hold on to this piece. I don't know what that would be. Sure would be nice if we had one though. Alright, we'll put it in a vise. Well, what is the problem here? You know, it'd be nice if I had some kind of a tool that could press this bearing in instead of having to hit it with a hammer. What would you call that? A pusher, maybe? Huh. Well, it's too bad. Alright, we'll use the press. There we go. Does seem a little loose to me. I don't know why it needs that much slop between the discs, but I checked the parts book, 5 steels, 6 frictions. That's what I took out of the old one, or took out of it when I took it apart, so it's got to be correct. Seems kind of odd. But it does work. I believe it has an orifice, so it bleeds off the pressure. Alright folks, I'd rather not do this twice, so I went ahead and pulled it back apart. Yes, I'm aware of the irony in that statement. The air that we heard leaking past is normal. It's coming from this orifice right here. The way this thing's set up, the solenoid valve here is normally open, and when there's no power, it allows the fluid to bypass through this passage right here. When you apply 12 volts to the solenoid, it closes off this passage and sends all the fluid to the back of this seal, which in turn sends it through the hole drilled in the end of this shaft. But it always allows a certain amount of fluid to bypass through this orifice. That's so that you get lubrication into the pump. And the reason that the air changed tones as we were turning the gears is because sometimes it's blocked by the ball and sometimes it's not in this bearing here. Anyway, long story short, we're good to go. I'm going to put it back together and we'll get it installed. Hey lady.
Howdy folks.
Can you help us pull a truck inside?
Of course.
If you're done watching videos of heroic gentlemen removing dead creatures from the bottom of cars.
It was greatly appreciated.
It's best not to look in the back of a garbage truck.
I don't think that part has any garbage in it.
You're going to have to turn the key on. Please do not start it.
Okay.
Because the transmission is open.
Okay.
You'll have a real bad day.
Okay.
So you'll turn the key on.
Okay.
And that will let you turn the steering wheel.
Okay.
And then when we get ready to go, you're going to pull this little lever right here to release the parking brake. And if you need to stop, either push the regular brake pedal or the parking brake pedal and it should stop.
Okay. So, to make sure I got it, I'm turning the key on to the on position. I'm hitting the brake. And then I'm putting it in neutral?
You don't have to touch the gear shifter.
Oh, okay.
It's already in neutral.
Okay. So that's all I'm doing.
It appears you're going to have some help. Hey kiddo, I think we should let Mom do this one solo, buddy.
You want to come sit next to me?
Yeah, it's probably the safest place for him.
Yeah.
Alright lady, mission accomplished. Thank you very much. I'm going to spend Sunday afternoon working underneath of a garbage truck while my lovely wife goes shopping.
Yay.
Well, we should be ready to install this PTO. Got the gasket. The gasket is a gasket, but it's also a spacer, and it sets the right lash for this gear. There's 2 of these locating sleeves, and it's held on by 1 stud and 5 bolts. One of the bolts is this big long sucker. It actually passes right through the internal cavity of the PTO, which is kind of hokey. Anyway, there's an O-ring underneath the head. Does not come with the seal kit for whatever reason, so I just stuck a generic O-ring on that. And you have to install that bolt before you set the PTO up next to the transmission. There's not room to fish that bolt through the hole once it's in place. Oh, come on. Why? Of all the things to happen, the freaking electrical cord gets caught in there. Alright folks, oh man, I think we got the PTO itself installed. It's a tight fit. There's really only one bolt, this one here, you can get a socket on. Everything else is open-ended wrench only. And they do have a torque spec for those bolts, but I'd love for somebody from Chelsea to tell me how to get a torque wrench on that little sucker. There is no way. Man, it's pretty hard to talk laying on your back. What Ford modular engine would be complete without a couple of broken off exhaust manifold studs? So we'll note that on the invoice, and we'll move on. Yeah, we're going to change the transmission fluid. You can see how black it is. The PTO and the transmission, of course, share the same fluid, so all that burned up clutch material it's going to be in there. So we'll go ahead and drop the pan and replace the filter, and we should be good. Yeah, I figured it was going to be pretty nasty. That's better. Got a new Ford filter and the new pan gasket. Now the pan gasket can be reused if you live somewhere that has a real climate, like Florida or California or, you know, anywhere but here. We got the warning light on. I'd say it works. Cool. It's working, but I don't think it's working correctly. It's supposed to go up to 900 RPM anytime the PTO switch is turned on. Well, it has this accelerator switch here, but it doesn't seem to do anything. Yeah, it makes no difference in the RPMs, so we need to investigate that. Alright folks, the project has taken an unexpected turn. Although, if you're a long-time viewer, maybe you expected this. Somebody's been meddling where they shouldn't have been, and they've left me with a nasty rat's nest here. The owners of this truck have told me that it's always had electrical problems since they've owned it, and that the PTO has never worked correctly. So what's supposed to happen is when you flip the PTO switch on, the PCM puts the transmission into a PTO mode. It raises the line pressure, it raises the RPM, and it modulates the line pressure so that that clutch gets constant pressure. And that has not been working. I don't believe that's been working the whole time they've owned it. And if I had to guess, I would bet that's why the clutch in the PTO failed. I don't think the seal being blown out was the reason at all. If anything, I think the seal might have been a symptom of this problem here. All right, folks, things are coming into focus a little more. I had no idea there was a problem on the control side of the PTO when they brought this truck to me. My understanding, talking to the customer, is that the way this is supposed to work is you flip on the PTO switch in the cab, and then when you push one of the hydraulic levers on the body, it waits like 2 or 3 seconds, and then it revs up the engine and increases the speed of the hydraulics. It's supposed to be like a safety thing so that they start slow and then they speed up if you need them to. He said that part of it has never worked since they've owned the truck. And he can't find anybody that knows how to fix that part of it. They don't have any wiring diagrams for the garbage body. So here's the game plan, what I think we're going to do. This is from the Ford Bodybuilder Layout Book. You can get these for free off the Ford website. They make this for upfitters so that they can hopefully integrate this stuff correctly. Now, my experience with upfitters, they're kind of like lawyers. 99% of them give the other 1% a bad name. And that seems to be what's happened here. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to mimic this layout right here. So this is what Ford says to do. They use 1 relay and 1 switch. We can't do it exactly like this though. We're going to have to, it's going to be a little bit different. So what I think we're going to do, we'll eliminate this switch in the schematic. And this truck has the upfitter switch package already installed. So there's 4 rocker switches and they control 4 relays. And the relays all have fused power. Everything's right there that we need. So there's 1 switch already designated for the PTO and 1 for the high idle. So what we're going to do, hopefully if you guys can see this, we will run this violet with green wire out of the PTO switch and relay, and we'll run it right here. That will provide power to the PTO signal on the ECM, and it will also power the relay. Then we will take this brown wire from the high idle switch and relay, and we will run it directly to this wire here through a 1K ohm resistor and into the green wire on the ECM. That will tell the computer to raise the RPM to 1400. He told me, customer told me that 1400 is their desired RPM for the hydraulics to work normally. So yeah, we should have everything there that we need to do that. Somebody's added a bunch of extra relays. We can just repurpose those. And I think we've already got, let's see. Yeah, if I'm looking at this right, there's already a 10 amp fused power there that we can tap into for this right here to power the actual solenoid on the PTO. So we shouldn't have to run any fuses or any wires or anything like that. We just need to, we've got to unscramble what's been done and change it to work like this. All right, folks, some time has passed, but we're making progress. I think I figured out how to do everything I want to do. So this relay here is just hanging out. It doesn't do anything anymore. And this relay I've repurposed to control the PTO. So that 1 relay there should do everything that we need to do in conjunction with the upfitter relays that are in the relay box behind this panel. Behind this white heat shrink is a 1K ohm resistor. That's going to set our high idle speed. So let's see what she does. Oh, where's the key? Typical Ford, it's got the world's most annoying door dinger. Okay, that's working. Now high idle. PTO looks dry. Transmission pan looks dry. Got the wires tied up. I think we're done on the bottom side. Oh boy. That right there is the control panel that's supposed to control the PTO and the idle speed and all that jazz. But without a wiring diagram, you know, we could spend a month of Sundays trying to figure out what all those green wires do. I don't even have a layout of the relays to know what the relays are for. So I think what we've done is kosher. We're going to send it on its way. Hold on, folks. We found a problem. I'll give you a minute to collect yourselves. Something is preventing the PTO from engaging at certain times, and I think I found it. I believe it's the brake switch. So here I tried to turn it on and it didn't work. Here I tried to turn it on and it didn't work. And then here I turned it on and it finally did work. And if you page up here, you'll see that the brake was on during that time. And I was not pushing the brake pedal. Alright, we just caught it. The brake pedal is up. And the PID is showing brake pedal on. And it just changed states right here while we were watching it. Well, that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can get it to do it again. Was doing it every time. Alright folks, let me try to explain this in case you aren't following along. The problem currently is that something intermittently is preventing the PTO from engaging. So we have unhacked the wiring under the dash and rehacked it to basically follow this layout from the Ford Bodybuilder book. What's supposed to happen is when you flip the PTO switch on, it sends power through this yellow and green wire to tell the computer that we want to turn the PTO on and put the transmission into a PTO mode. And in that PTO mode, it raises the line pressure and it raises the engine RPM, and then it has a series of checks that it goes through to make sure that everything is cool before it turns the PTO on. And I think there's 8 criteria. The engine has to be running, the transmission has to be in park, the parking brake has to be pressed, and then the transmission temperature can't be too high, the engine temperature can't be too high, and the brake pedal cannot be pressed. And if all those things are true, then it provides a ground on this wire here, this blue and white, the PTO OK. And once it grounds this wire right here, that allows the relay to switch on and turn on the PTO. And at that point, you're off to the races. Now it gets a confirmation signal here on this blue-green, this PTO engage wire to tell the computer that, hey, we actually did flip on the relay and engage the PTO, so continue with your PTO mode. Anyway, long story short, what I think is happening is the computer believes that the brake pedal has been pressed, even though the brake pedal isn't being pressed. And it's kind of complicated. There's 2 brake switches. Well, there's actually 3. So there's one underneath of the dash connected to the brake pedal. It looks like this. And it actually has 2 sets of contacts inside. So one of them is the brake switch that connects to the computer. The other one is the brake light switch. So this one actually controls the tail lights. They're separate circuits. This, I believe, is fine. I can't see any problems with it. The contacts look good. It moves freely. And it also tests out good underneath the truck. But there's another brake switch. It's a pressure switch, and it's connected to the bottom of the master cylinder. And that, I believe, is the problem. Yeah, I can show you the test setup, but I don't know if I can show you the problem. I think I might have accidentally fixed it in the process of trying to diagnose it. Now what makes this even more confusing is that the switch on the pedal and the pressure switch on the master cylinder both have separate inputs to the PCM, but they share the same data PID in the scan tool, at least on the Snap-on tool. Anyway, I'm not going to mess around with it. We're going to replace that pressure switch on the master cylinder. It's pretty cheap, 20 bucks, and it's not a bad job to replace it. I know Ford's had a lot of problems with those switches, especially with cruise control related issues. And I think there might have even been a TSB about that. If not for this truck, then for other Ford models. All right, folks, a new brake pressure switch has been installed. Let's see if it works. Here we go. So the brake switch is working. That's all good. Now it's probably not going to run the PTO when we first start it. It has to reach a steady idle speed before it'll allow you to switch it on. Yeah, it's still nothing. Alright folks, I think we're good. I'm tired of messing with it. I'm tired of smelling it. Let's get it out of here. We'll send it down the road and see what happens. Alright folks, I think that's it for the little garbage truck that could. I'm fairly happy with our repairs. I think it's going to be just fine. I did follow up with my automatic transmission shop, the one that I normally work with. He told me not to try to flush the transmission. He said, generally speaking, that those flushes actually cause more problems than they solve. As far as what happened to the PTO, here's what I think went down. At some point long ago, something failed in the control box for the garbage truck body, and without a wiring diagram, they were not able to fix it. That's when they added the relays underneath the dash, and they got the PTO to work, but they didn't get the computer to understand that the PTO was being engaged. So it didn't know that it was supposed to raise the line pressure and raise the RPM and sort of safeguard the PTO, because it had no idea that it was being turned on. So over a long enough timeline, running it that way, the clutches were slipping a little bit, and it eventually caused the clutches to burn up to the point that the clutch pack collapsed enough that the piston could actually pop out of the bore, and the little lip seal in there could actually popped out. And then when they disengaged the PTO, the spring's trying to shove that piston back in the bore, and it's folding the lip of the seal back over. That's why the lip was all torn up like that. I didn't even know this was a problem when they brought it here. They told me that the PTO wasn't working. I had no idea that the electrical part of it was all jacked up. So I'm glad we went one step further and took care of the electrical issues. Now here's the crazy part. I don't like to bag on other shops, but my understanding is that this truck has been to 4 other shops to try and fix the computer-related issues with the PTO. They took it to 2 different garbage truck service places, a Ford dealership, and a garbage truck builder who's actually a dealer for New Way, which is the manufacturer of the garbage truck body. And none of them were able to fix the problem. Anyway, I'm tired. The mosquitoes are swarming. It's going on 10:30 p.m. So thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.